Hospital beds were hanging from tree branches by chains, swaying in the morning breeze like some nightmare art installation. 3 of them hang there, rusty metal frames at about head height, right beside a back road in Harlan County. I'm 25 now, but this is 3 years ago, and I still see it like it's happening right in front. My boyfriend Tyler is driving our SUV with a little furniture trailer, because we're buying a vintage dining table today. Normal, boring Saturday errand, nothing creepy on the schedule, just back roads because the trailer can't handle highway speed safely. Locals keep whipping around us whenever they get a chance, throwing quick, annoyed looks that I usually find funny anyway. About 2 miles before the seller's address, we come around a slow curve and that yard hits my vision hard. My hand goes straight to the door handle and clamps down so hard my fingers feel like plastic right there. There are medical gurneys scattered across the grass, at least a dozen, maybe 15. Some flipped, some lined along fencing. A couple have straps still attached, hanging down toward the ground like limp arms, and my brain registers hospital equipment. But it's those 3 beds hanging from the oak branches that make my stomach knot in this sharp way inside. They're at eye level, chains running up into branches, one with gray stained sheets, another with a side rail crushed. The house behind it doesn't look abandoned at all, just a regular 2-story place with a porch and truck outside. There are flower pots on the steps and curtains in the windows, and somehow that normal stuff makes everything worse today. Tyler slows way down without stopping, so we're just sitting in the lane while the hanging chains click lightly nearby. For maybe 2 minutes, neither of us talks, like we're both waiting for some normal explanation to drop into place. No explanation comes, just that quiet feeling that we are looking straight at something we shouldn't be seeing right now. I finally pull out my phone and say I'm taking a picture, because nobody is going to believe this later. Tyler snorts a little and says, "Yeah, we should, in case we ever need proof for something about this drive." I hold my phone steady, tap the screen, then open the photo and stare because the beds are just smears. The trees are sharp, the fence is sharp, the grass is sharp, only the 3 hanging beds look wrong now. I take another, bracing my elbow on the window. Same blur, and Tyler curses because his pictures look identical too. To prove the cameras work, I spin around and shoot the dashboard and trailer. Those images come out perfectly clear. When I turn back toward the yard, the beds smear again on screen, and I feel my throat tightening up. While I'm trying to refocus, I notice a metal shipping container beside the house, newer than everything else around it. The whole road-facing side is covered in red symbols, neat rows of the same shape repeated over and over again. The color is dark enough to make me think of dried blood, and I hear Tyler say we're leaving now. Almost at the same time, we both notice a thin line of smoke from the chimney, which somehow feels worse. Tyler drops his phone in the cup holder, shifts into drive, and pulls away, and neither of us talks then. The last 2 miles to the seller's place are completely silent, just engine noise and my heartbeat until we turn. The seller, Jeffrey, comes out of his garage wiping his hands, friendly smile, and shows us the oak table inside. While he talks about the craftsmanship, I keep glancing toward the road, until finally I interrupt and ask about that property. I describe the beds, the gurneys, the red symbols, and Tyler adds details about the stains and bent rail too. Jeffrey just frowns and says he drove that road this morning, saw nothing, and that Robert and Linda keep bees. We buy the table, load it, and Tyler turns toward town instead, adding 30 extra minutes to avoid that place. A week later, Tyler asks if I still think about that property, and I tell him I haven't really stopped. He gets quiet, then says he's going back out there. It's not some macho thing. He just hates unsolved stuff. It gets under his skin until he can put it in a box. I've got a shift that afternoon I can't skip. And honestly, I don't push it, because part of me really doesn't want to see that place again. He keeps saying it'll look normal in the daylight, that we probably missed some obvious explanation. He takes the SUV without the trailer this time, says he'll follow the exact same GPS route, and he'll call me from Jeffrey's driveway if he finds it. When he pulls out, I stand at the window longer than I need to, watching the taillights disappear. I keep checking my phone at work, expecting a text with a photo of some yard full of junk saying, "Look, told you." Nothing comes. Almost 3 hours after he left, I'm home again, and the front door finally opens. Tyler walks in looking frustrated, not shaken, just irritated in this tight way. He tosses his keys into the bowl and says he found Jeffrey's Road, the gas station, every piece of the route we remembered. But when he tried to take the back way we used that morning, nothing lined up. Every narrow little road looked like the last one, and none of them had that property. He says the GPS kept recalculating, asking him to turn down stretches that weren't actually roads anymore, just gravel or private drives. After looping around for almost an hour and watching the gas needle drop, he turned back. "If it's there, I couldn't find it," he says, and drops his phone on the counter like he's done talking. That night, I'm the one who can't let it go. I sit down with my laptop and pull up Google Maps. I trace the route from our place to Jeffrey's farm using Tyler's GPS history and what I remember from that morning. I zoom in on the back roads, dragging the little street view guy onto every line that even vaguely looks right. Half of them don't have street view at all. The ones that do show empty fields, trailers, regular houses, no beds, no gurneys, no container. I switch to satellite view, but the resolution out there is garbage. Just blurry patches of fields and trees, no detail sharp enough to show individual objects in a yard. I notice the imagery is a couple years old and tell myself that's why I'm not seeing anything, but it doesn't actually help. I open the county website and stare at the property records link. For a second, I imagine calling some board clerk and asking if they have any listings with a bunch of hospital beds outside. Like that's a normal question. I close the window instead. I keep thinking that if something seriously criminal was happening there, someone who actually lives in Harlan County would have seen it, would have called the cops or the news or someone. Tyler stands behind me for a while, watching me click around. Eventually he says, "We were probably just wiped that morning. Long drive, weird light. Stuff looks off when you're tired." I remind him how we described everything the same on the drive home without even trying. The gray sheets, the red symbols on the container, the smoke from the chimney. He doesn't argue, just shrugs and says, "Maybe we mixed up roads. Maybe the GPS glitched, and we're building it up in our heads now because it was creepy." That table is still in our kitchen now, 3 years later, and we eat at it every day like nothing strange ever happened on the way to get it. Sometimes when I'm alone, I catch myself running my hand along the edge of the wood, and my brain jumps straight back to those beds swaying on chains. I see the sheets with the dark stains, that new container covered in those neat rows of red marks, and the normal house behind it with its flower pots and smoke from the chimney. I think about Jeffrey telling us he drove past that house that morning and saw nothing unusual, and how sure he was about the old couple who live there, the ones who sell honey at the market. I've tried to talk myself out of this 100 different ways since then. Maybe we were exhausted and our brains filled in details. Maybe we took the wrong road and attached the memory to the wrong place. Maybe it really was some short-term art thing that got cleaned up fast. None of it fully works. Two people having the same hallucination with matching details feels wrong. The wrong road excuse doesn't explain why the GPS history shows exactly the route we remember. The art idea doesn't fit with Jeffrey driving past hours earlier and noticing nothing. The thing that bothers me most is the way our phones refuse to capture it, because that sounds like some cheap horror cliche and I hate that. It makes me question my own memory. But no matter how I pick it apart, I always end up in the same spot. I was there, Tyler was there, and whatever anyone else thinks, we both know what we saw. The access control system pinged again at 2:47 a.m. Same unknown keycard trying to exit from the West Wing. Same card that didn't exist in any company database. I watched the little door icon flip from red to green on my monitor, and, right on cue, the nearby cameras went straight to static. 12 seconds of digital snow, then the picture snapped back to a clean, empty hallway. Fourth night in a row. Same door, same phantom card, same perfect 12-second blackout. I sat there in the security office, alone on nights, feeling less like I was watching the building and more like somebody inside the building was watching me. I worked night shift security at a tech company headquarters in Austin, 26 years old, 2 months into what I thought was going to be the easiest job of my life. The place was huge. 8 floors of glass and concrete, offices and labs that emptied out after 7 p.m. By midnight, it was just me and the cleaning crew finishing up their last floor. The west wing of the 3rd floor had been vacant for about 6 months after one of the development teams moved to a newer building across town. They left behind rows of cubicles, unplugged workstations, whiteboards full of half-erased diagrams, all of it frozen mid-project. My nights were mostly routine. I watched cameras, did hourly rounds, checked doors, wrote up anything even slightly off. First 2 months were boring in the good way. The worst I dealt with was a drunk guy rattling the lobby doors one Friday and a raccoon setting off the loading dock motion sensor. Then, in mid-October, the door contacts in 3 West started tripping. Always between 2 and 4 a.m., always the same door trying to open from the inside out. That part bothered me. To hit that reader, you already had to be inside a secured, supposedly empty wing of the building. The first night it happened, I followed procedure. Alarm pops after midnight. You acknowledge it, pull up the camera, and if it looks wrong, you go look. Back then, the feed still worked. I remember a blur by the stairwell door on 3 West, like someone stepping back just out of frame. I grabbed my badge and flashlight, took the stairs 2 at a time, and walked that whole hallway. Offices, closets, bathrooms, all clear. I wrote it up as a possible false alarm. Second night, same card number, same door. But this time the feed cut out the instant the icon turned green and came back 12 seconds later. Third night was identical. That's when I stopped thinking glitch and started thinking someone was testing how blind they could make us. I checked it personally every time after that. As soon as the alert hit, I'd badge into 3 West, walk the corridor with my flashlight, open every office door, poke my head into every storage closet. Carpet was clean, chairs pushed in, monitors dark. No coffee cups, no backpacks. Nothing that said a human being had been there 5 minutes earlier trying to leave. After the 3rd sweep like that, I brought it up to our facilities manager during shift change. He pulled the access logs, scrolled to the events, and showed me the strangest part. The system thought it was a perfectly valid keycard swipe. It wasn't. When he tried to look it up, the badge number didn't match any employee, contractor, temp, or visitor in the system. No name, no photo, no issued date. Just a clean record of a card with the right format and encryption doing 3 successful exit attempts in the middle of the night. He called our security vendor the next day and had their techs come out. They tested the reader, swapped the controller, rebooted the panel, even pulled a sample card from their own stack and badged it through. Hardware checked out fine. One of them shrugged and said, "Could be a cloned credential from some ex-employee." After they left, I tightened my rounds, logged everything, and tried to convince myself it was still basically nothing. I started finding small things during my rounds. A water bottle left on a desk that wasn't there an hour ago. A candy wrapper in a trash can I'd checked empty. When I reported the water bottle, police actually came this time. But by the time they reached the West Wing, it was gone. I walked them to the exact cubicle where I'd seen it sitting on the desk, and the surface was completely clear. No bottle, no ring, no trash, nothing that said anybody had been there. I pulled out my phone to show the pictures I'd taken right after I'd found it. In my head, they'd been normal. On the screen, the bottle was just a smeared shape sitting in the middle of the frame, like the camera couldn't decide what to focus on. The detective, older guy in a wrinkled suit, stared at my phone for a few seconds, zoomed in once, then looked at me like I was wasting his time. "So you're telling me a ghost is stealing your water?" he said. His partner smirked. I told them no. I was telling them someone was in this building who shouldn't be, and they knew exactly how to stay off our cameras. He wrote a short statement, labeled it "Suspicious Circumstances," and they left. I watched their taillights disappear on the outside camera and felt more alone in that building than I had in 2 months of nights. After that, I stopped trusting my normal route. If someone was watching me move, I didn't want to hand them the same schedule every night. I shifted the times on my rounds, doubled back on myself, sometimes hit the West Wing twice in 20 minutes and then skipped it for an hour. I changed floors out of order. I kept my flashlight off unless I needed it and walked slower, listening more than looking, trying to catch anything that didn't fit. 4 nights after the police visit, I was in that same hallway near the stairwell when I heard metal scrape above me. It didn't sound like air in a duct. It sounded like weight sliding slowly along something solid. I froze in the middle of the corridor. The noise moved in the ceiling, steady and deliberate, following the length of the hallway. I tracked it with my eyes even though all I could see were ceiling tiles. It stopped right above one of the big vents. There was a soft thump, like a knee bumping metal, and then nothing. I stood there with my hand on my radio, not talking, just counting out seconds and trying to figure out where someone would even get into that space. The more I thought about it, the worse it felt. Whoever was up there knew the technical gaps between floors, knew how to crawl over the hallway without making the tiles flex, and knew exactly where to stop so the cameras wouldn't catch a shadow or a flicker. That wasn't some random trespasser. That was somebody who understood the building from the inside. When my shift ended that morning, I went straight to Frank, the head of security, and told him everything. I laid out the phantom card, the camera glitches, the water bottle, the blurred photos, and the sound of someone crawling above 3 West. His face changed when I said technical space, and between 2 and 4 in the morning. He shut his office door and told me about Brian. Brian had been a systems engineer, worked there 5 years, helped design the ventilation layout, the cable runs, the little crawl spaces that connected labs and server rooms. According to Frank, he got caught walking out with equipment that never showed up on any paperwork. They fired him, and it went bad. Security walked him out while he yelled that they were killing his career. After that, he kept trying to come back. Said he forgot personal tools. Said he left a prototype. Tried to sweet-talk reception. Tried to tailgate employees through secure doors. Twice they caught him hanging around the parking garage waiting to slip in behind someone. That's when the company got a restraining order. Frank said Brian was smart, and he was angry, and he was obsessed with the idea that the company had ruined his life over nothing. I asked Frank if he thought Brian was back. Instead of answering, he picked up the phone, called a contact at the police, and stepped out into the hallway. I sat there alone in his office, staring at the access logs on his second monitor, watching that same card number pop up again and again in the middle of the night. When he came back in, he told me Brian couldn't be our guy. For the last 3 months, Brian had been in Colorado. Not just his word either. Bank records, garage security footage, co-workers, all putting him hundreds of miles away every time our system logged that mystery card. After that call, the company went into full lockdown. Facilities sealed every hatch into the technical space, put new locks and tamper strips on the access panels, and added extra sensors around the West Wing. They brought in outside specialists with thermal cameras and had them crawl every path they could fit in. 2 long nights of inspections, and they found nothing. No bedding, no food wrappers, no tools, no sign anybody had been living or even hiding up there. It's been 3 months since then. The motion in the West Wing stopped, the cameras haven't glitched once, and the building feels normal on paper. But once a week, always between 2 and 4 in the morning, that same phantom keycard hits the system and tries a door in 3 West. No one shows on the feeds, no door actually opens, the log just quietly records another failed attempt. I still sit there in the control room watching for it, and I keep hearing Frank's voice in my head, saying that either someone else picked up where Brian left off, someone just as patient and just as invested in this place, or Brian figured out a way to be in 2 places at once. When I was freelancing in IT 2 years back, I got hired for a 3-week project setting up server infrastructure for a startup in another city. Instead of paying for a hotel, I decided to save money and rent a room through one of those short-term rental sites. Found a listing from a host named Rick. Whole room in a house, decent price, photos looked fine. Only had 3 reviews though, all short and formal like, "Everything was fine, thanks," with no real details about him or the place. I remember hovering over the page thinking it was weird nobody had bothered to write more. Then I told myself people are lazy with reviews, the pictures looked normal enough, and I clicked book. A week before the trip, I messaged Rick, introduced myself, told him about the project, asked about Wi-Fi and parking and check-in, tried to sound friendly. I sent this long, polite paragraph because I hate awkwardness with hosts. He replied maybe an hour later with 1 line, the address, a 4-digit door code, and check-in after 6 p.m. No hello, no questions, no looking forward to hosting you. I read it twice, thinking there had to be more coming, but that was it. Looking back, that should have been my first warning sign, but I just closed my laptop and told myself I was overthinking it. I got there Sunday evening with my suitcase and backpack, and Rick met me at the entrance with this completely blank expression. No, hey, no smile, just opened the door a crack and stared. I reached out to shake his hand and started thanking him for letting me stay, but he just stared at me for a few seconds without answering. Long enough that I actually checked the house number over his shoulder. Then he suddenly turned around and walked inside without a word. I followed him, and he didn't even let me fully step in at first. He just stood in the hallway blocking the way, listing rules in this flat voice with this edge in it. If I broke anything, I'd pay full replacement cost plus something for his inconvenience. If I made noise after 9, he'd terminate the rental with no refund. If I brought anyone over without warning, $500 fine, charged to the card on file. He stared at me the whole time like I'd already done all of it. I kept nodding and saying sure, of course, because I really needed the room, and I didn't want drama with the booking site. After the speech, he finally moved, pointed at a narrow staircase and said my room was upstairs, second door on the left. The rest of the house was private area for him and his wife. No offer to help with the suitcase even though the stairs were steep and I was clearly struggling. He just watched to make sure I didn't touch the walls. The room was tiny. Single bed, old desk, 1 chair, small window facing the street. The part that bothered me was the door. There was no real lock, just a flimsy little latch on the inside that looked like it would rip out of the frame if someone shoved hard enough. I stood there holding it between my fingers, telling myself it was fine, that I was only there for 3 weeks. A few minutes later, I realized he hadn't given me the Wi-Fi password, so I went back downstairs. Rick was in the kitchen pouring himself whiskey. From how he moved, it wasn't his first drink of the night. The bottle on the counter was already low and there were 2 glasses out. His, and one set aside, I guessed for his wife. I asked about the internet, and he didn't even look at me at first. Then he sighed, grabbed a crumpled sticky note off the fridge and tossed it across the counter. Said if I bothered him every evening with questions, he'd have to reconsider the terms. He stressed those words like he was my landlord, not some guy from a rental app. I said I wouldn't, thanked him, and got back up to my room, closing the door as quietly as I could. Lying on the bed, I had this sudden thought that 3 weeks might feel longer than I expected. Over the next few days, the house turned into something I tried not to think about when I was at the office. Most evenings when I came back, I'd hear shouting from downstairs before I even took my shoes off. Rick screaming at his wife about money, about dinner, about dishes in the sink, about things left by the door. It was never a normal disagreement, just him unloading on her. I'd hear her apologizing over and over in this low voice, and then silence, and then it would start again. The few times I ran into her in the hallway, she wouldn't meet my eyes. She moved around the place fast and quiet, like a tenant afraid of getting in trouble, not an equal in her own home. I stayed out of it because stepping into someone else's marriage fight felt stupid and dangerous, but it made the air in that house feel tight. By the end of the first week, Rick had barged into my room several times without knocking, saying he was just checking that everything was okay, that I hadn't broken anything or plugged in some forbidden appliance. He'd open the door suddenly, walk in, and slowly look around like he was searching for evidence. It wasn't concern, it was control. Once I was working on my laptop with headphones on, and didn't hear him come in right away. I only noticed when I felt that sense of someone behind you and turned. He was standing directly over my shoulder, looking at my screen. I jumped, yanked the headphones off and asked, "Everything okay?" He didn't answer, just stared at the code on my screen for a second, turned around and walked out, closing the door halfway but not fully. I sat there with my heart racing, trying to tell myself he'd come up to ask something and just changed his mind, but there hadn't been any words, no knock, nothing. It felt like I'd caught him instead of the other way around. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing him in my head, that blank face over my shoulder. Every time the house made a sound, I sat up and checked the door latch. I even pushed my suitcase against the door, not because it would stop anyone, but just so I'd hear it move first. Sometime after midnight I must have dozed off, but it was that light sleep where your brain is still listening. Around 3 in the morning I woke up to the sound of floorboards creaking in the hallway right outside my door. The steps were slow and careful. I held my breath. You can tell when someone is walking past, and when they stop at your door, and whoever it was stopped right there. Then the handle started to move. I heard the metal click as someone tried to turn it, pushing down against the latch. It held, but they tried again. 2 times, 3 times, steady pressure like they were testing how much it would give. I didn't say a word. I just stared at the handle shaking slightly in the dark. After that, there was slow, heavy breathing right outside, way too close. And then the floorboards creaked again as the weight moved away. After that, silence. I stayed awake until it got light out. My whole body hurt from how tense I'd been. When I went downstairs later, Rick acted like nothing had happened, but there was this look in his eyes, like he was waiting for me to bring it up. His wife wouldn't look at me at all. She dropped a spoon when I said good morning. I knew it had been him outside that door. Nobody else was in that house. I'd been there exactly 1 week when I told him Friday evening that my plans had changed. The project got cut short, and I had to leave town early. I tried to sound annoyed instead of scared, so he wouldn't think I was accusing him of anything. Rick didn't ask a single question. He held out his hand, took the keys, and opened the front door for me without saying goodbye. As soon as I stepped out, He slammed it hard enough that the frame shook behind me. I booked a cheap hotel that same hour and paid for the remaining 2 weeks myself because there was no way I was sleeping under his roof again. Every evening there I felt in danger around Rick, the way he stared, appeared without warning, and tried my door at 3 in the morning. I never left a review. I just wanted to forget. Now I regret it, knowing his wife is there and other guests might stay there unwarned. If something feels wrong, leave. I still wake to creaking and forget where I am. That week messed me up. About 2 years back, I picked up a gig as a security guard at a temporary warehouse in an industrial area outside the city. The place sat on a lot they were clearing for new development. Shift was 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. Nothing special. Just be there in case of break-ins or vandals. Check the perimeter once an hour. They paid cash under the table, $300 a week, which worked fine for me. The warehouse sat in the middle of empty lots with trees and overgrown weeds. Lighting was weak, just 2 pole lights by the entrance, so I carried a flashlight and kept a baseball bat in my car just in case. First night I parked close to the door on purpose, did my walk around, checked the padlocks, then sat in the prefab office trying not to fall asleep. By the second night I already had a routine. I'd get there a little early, unlock the chain on the gate, walk through the building while it was still light to make sure nobody was hiding inside. It was all boxed flooring and doors, construction materials waiting to go to a subdivision, nothing that felt worth dying over. I kept the bat leaned against the desk where I signed the log, flashlight on the corner next to my coffee, keys in my front pocket for the car. The guy who hired me had been clear on the phone. You're there to watch and call the cops, not fight anybody. So I treated it like easy money. Stay on the property, stay awake, don't do anything dumb. End of September was hot during the day, but temperature dropped hard at night. Wind pushed dry leaves around and made strange sounds in the branches at the edge of the lot. Around 10 p.m. on my second night, I was doing a perimeter check and heard cracking of branches somewhere to my right, out in the darkness past the glow from the pole lamps. I stopped walking and listened, shined my flashlight that way, saw nothing but trees and bushes moving in the wind. I stood there maybe 10 seconds, feeling stupid, pointing a beam at nothing, then told myself it was a raccoon or a stray dog nosing through trash. We were near a creek and junk. Animals made sense. I finished the loop, checked the locks again out of habit, then went back inside and wrote 2200 perimeter clear in the log. About 20 minutes later, I stepped back outside to smoke by my car, and the cracking came again, closer and louder. Definitely something big moving between the tree trunks this time. It wasn't that light rustling you get with wind. It was weight, branches snapping, a crunch in the dirt, then a pause like whatever it was had stopped when I moved. I clicked my lighter off and just listened, heart already picking up. No traffic, no distant machinery, just that sound out past the edge of the light. I flicked the flashlight on and swung the beam toward the trees, slower than I wanted, so I didn't whip past whatever was there and miss it. I aimed my flashlight beam straight at the source and froze. 2 huge yellow eyes stared back at me about chest level, shining when the light hit them. For a split second, my brain didn't register it as normal, just 2 circles hanging there. Then the head turned, and I heard a low growl, deep from the chest, and it stepped forward enough that I could see it. Big dog, or maybe a wolf, way larger than any stray I'd seen, shoulders thick, fur standing up along its back, teeth showing. It wasn't somebody's pet, it was testing distance. My heart hammered so hard I heard my pulse in my ears. In that moment, I understood how stupid it was to think this job was just easy cash. I started backing slowly toward the driver's side, one careful step at a time, keeping the flashlight on the animal and feeling back along the metal with my free hand until my fingers found the door handle, not turning my back to it. The beast stopped maybe 30 feet from me and just held there, growling, eyes burning yellow in the flashlight beam. I forced myself not to run, just kept sliding sideways until my hand hit the door handle. As soon as I felt metal, I yanked it open, dropped into the seat, and kicked the door shut with my heel. The growl jumped louder at the slam, and for a second I really thought it was going to hit the side of the car. I stabbed the lock button, kept the flashlight up, and stared at it through the glass. Up close like that, I finally saw how big it was. It paced a little left and right, chest low, shoulders bunched, always facing the car like it was weighing its options. I remembered the bat in the back seat and had this quick, stupid picture of myself stepping out with it. Then I pushed that away and reached for my phone instead. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I called the manager. First time it went to voicemail, which made my chest tighten, so I hung up and called again without looking away from the animal. This time he picked up sounding half asleep and a little annoyed, asking if someone had broken in. I told him there was a huge dog, or maybe a wolf, right in front of my car, growling and not backing off, and that if I stepped out it would probably come at me. He went quiet and then said, very calm, to stay in the car, finish the shift from there, and come by the office in the morning so we could talk and maybe call animal control. While we talked, the thing just stood there watching me. After a few minutes, it finally turned, walked to the edge of the light, and vanished back into the trees. I still didn't trust it was gone. I stayed in that car with the doors locked and the flashlight in my hand until the sky started to lighten and I could see the whole lot without the beam. Morning came, and after I locked up, I drove straight to the manager's office instead of going home. He listened while I went through everything again, and then told me there had been reports in the area about a pack of feral dogs, several big ones, maybe mixed with wolf blood, running near the creek and the industrial lots. He kept saying it made sense now, that what I saw was just one of those dogs being territorial, nothing special, nothing personal, just really bad luck with wildlife. Hearing that should have made me feel better, and I nodded along, but the word pack stuck in my head. If there was one that bold, there were others, and I pictured 3 or 4 of them slipping between those trees while I walked the fence line alone. I needed the cash, so I didn't quit on the spot. But I finished that week doing my whole shift from the driver's seat with the engine running and the bat across my lap. On Friday, I told him I was done. Since it was all cash, no paperwork, he just shrugged and paid me out. Even now, I still think about those yellow eyes and that low growl, the way it moved toward me slow, like it was seeing if I'd run or stand my ground. And I'm honestly sure that if I'd tried to fight it with that bat, I wouldn't have left that lot walking. About 9 years ago, when I was still in college, me and 2 friends drove out to this abandoned lighthouse because one of them bet $200 we wouldn't make it there. His name was Ryan. We had just finished exams and wanted something dumb to mark the end of the semester. My other friend Kate wasn't excited about it, but Ryan kept pushing, saying we'd chicken out and he'd keep his money. I was 21 that summer, 2015, and had only gotten my license 2 weeks earlier. I borrowed my sister's car and swore I'd bring it back. We sat at this empty crossroads while Ryan stabbed at his frozen GPS, restarting it over and over. Kate said it was a sign, and we should just go back to campus, that no one needed $200 badly enough to die in the middle of nowhere. $200 was a lot to me, though. I worked part-time at the campus bookstore, and that money was a month of food. If we turned around, Ryan would talk trash about it all summer. I told them we should follow the road signs. The lighthouse wasn't going anywhere out here tonight. The signs got older as we drove, just rusted metal arrows pointing toward the coast. Houses thinned out and then disappeared completely. The sky dropped from bright to that flat evening color fast, and I realized we hadn't seen another car in a while. The pavement turned cracked and uneven, then gave way to loose gravel that made the car rattle. Trees crowded closer until branches scraped the roof and brushed along the windows. Kate flinched the first couple times and Ryan laughed, saying it was free sound effects. I kept my hands tight on the wheel and stared ahead. Around 9 p.m., according to the green numbers on the dashboard, we came around a bend and the headlights picked up someone standing on the right side of the road. He was facing away from us, wearing a dark hooded jacket, hands hanging straight down. For a second, I thought it was a signpost or some kind of marker, just a shape. Then my brain caught up and I realized it was a person. I eased off the gas but didn't stop. Ryan leaned forward between the seats and said, "Okay, that's not creepy at all," trying to sound amused. "Why would you just stand there like that?" Kate asked. Her voice sounded too flat. I said I didn't know and kept driving. It felt dumb to be scared of somebody just standing on the shoulder, but none of us wanted to joke anymore. 10 minutes later, the road split. A rusted sign with the lighthouse name pointed left, and the offline map on Ryan's phone showed the same. I flicked the blinker out of habit and turned onto the left fork. The gravel got deeper, and the car slipped if I went faster, so I eased off the gas. After maybe another 15 minutes, we came around a wide curve and saw someone ahead in the headlights again. Same side of the road, same distance from the edge, same dark jacket, hood up, hands at his sides, back to us. My foot came off the gas, and the car rolled until it stopped on its own. Ryan stared between the seats, all the joking gone. Kate whispered, "That's him. It's the same guy." There were no driveways, no side roads, nowhere he could have passed us. We just sat there in the idling car staring at him in silence. Kate muttered, "Maybe it was twins, idiots taking turns out here." Ryan said they were mannequins, some prank we'd driven past already. Neither idea felt right. I put the car in drive and crept forward. As we passed him, I saw a strip of skin under the hood, real, not plastic. He didn't move. Ryan twisted around and whispered. He turned. He's watching us. I stared straight ahead. Kate pulled out her phone to call 911 and just stared at the screen. "No signal," she said. Ryan checked his phone. Same thing. We were cut off out here in nowhere. We found the lighthouse about 20 minutes later. The road finally opened up, and there it was at the end of a dirt pull-off. An old stone tower with a collapsed fence and a couple of half-destroyed buildings slumped around it. Even in the headlights, it just looked wrong, like somewhere people had stopped caring about a long time ago. I pulled the car to a stop facing the tower and kept my hands on the wheel while the engine idled too loud in the silence. We sat there arguing about what to do next. Ryan immediately said we had made it. That was the deal. $200 was his, and we could go home. Kate shot that down fast. She said the bet was to go to the lighthouse, not just see it from the car like we were on some tourist bus. Ryan argued that the property was fenced off, technically no trespassing, and he wasn't paying more just so we could get arrested. They went back and forth about the exact words he had used when he made the bet while I stared past the dashboard at the dark doorway at the base of the tower and tried not to think about the guy in the hood. At some point, Kate stopped talking mid-sentence. She was looking past me, out the passenger side. I followed her gaze and saw a weak yellow glow between the trees to the right, low to the ground, like someone holding a lantern. It wasn't bright like a car or a flashlight, just this dull, steady circle of light. Ryan leaned over to see and started to say it was probably a campsite or something, but the words faded out. The light didn't move at all. No swinging, no flicker, nothing. We watched it for maybe 5 minutes. Nobody said anything. I kept waiting for a person to step out or for it to shut off, but it just stayed there, pointed our way. The longer we stared, the more wrong it felt. Finally, I said, "Okay, we're done. I'm turning around." No one argued. I turned the key to kill the engine, then turned it again to start backing up. Nothing happened. No click, no struggle, just dead silence. I tried again, harder this time, like that would change anything. Still nothing. The dashboard lights stayed on, but the engine didn't even try. Kate asked if she should turn off the headlights to save power. I shut everything off and tried again. The car didn't respond at all. "The battery's dead," I said, even though it didn't make sense. We hadn't been parked long. We didn't have jumper cables. The nearest house we had passed was miles back. Our phones still showed no signal. Ryan swore under his breath and then louder, like that was going to help. I remember sitting there and feeling how far we were from anyone. That's when the headlights caught something in front of us. At some point, I'd switched them back on, and the same hooded figure was standing a few meters ahead in the middle of the track. Same jacket, hood up, hands at his sides, angled so we couldn't see his face. He hadn't been there a moment earlier. I hadn't heard gravel move, hadn't heard anything. I cranked the key again, then again, and again, like I could outrun what I was seeing if I just forced the car to work. On the 5th try, the engine suddenly caught and roared to life, loud enough that all 3 of us jumped. I didn't even bother turning around properly. I slammed it into reverse and floored it. The tires spun, and the back end slid out before the wheels finally gripped, and we shot backward down the track. I twisted in my seat long enough to yank the wheel and swing us around, then threw it in drive and hit the gas. We tore back down that gravel road, the whole car shaking over ruts and dips. I kept the speed close to what I thought the limit was, because I was terrified of losing control, but it still felt way too fast for that road. Branches scraped along the doors and windows. Kate sat rigid with her seatbelt pulled tight, staring straight ahead. Ryan stayed turned around most of the way, watching out the back window and not saying a word until we hit smooth asphalt again. Nobody spoke for the next half hour. The regular road signs and the occasional oncoming car made it feel like we had just stepped out of some other place. When I dropped them at their apartments, we didn't do the usual "text me when you get inside." We just went in. Ryan gave me the $200 the next day between classes. He didn't make a joke, didn't try to spin it. He just folded the bills into my hand and walked off. Kate and I only talked about that night once. She said she kept thinking about how the guy moved without us hearing him. Then she asked me not to bring it up again. I couldn't sleep right for a week. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hood, that still posture in the road, that moment where he went from far away to right in front of the car. I spent my evenings hunched over my laptop, Googling Jenkins Point, the lighthouse, anything connected to it. I went through random forums, local news sites, old scanned newspaper pages. On one of those tiny local papers from a few years earlier, I found a short article about a group arrested for trespassing on the lighthouse property and threatening tourists. The leader was charged with conducting spiritual rituals and intimidating visitors, plus vandalism. The article said the closure for dangerous structures was mostly a convenient excuse to keep people away from them, and mentioned others believed to be involved who hadn't been found. I never saw anything that said they caught everyone. Maybe they did, and it just never got posted anywhere. Maybe they didn't. Either way, I don't drive on unfamiliar forest roads at night anymore.